VisitTri-Valley, California presents Chef's Corner.
So hi, I'm Arthur Wall. I'm the executive chef here at the restaurant at Wente Vineyards. And so today I'm going to be preparing for you guys a braised lamb shank. I'm going to show you all how to braise a lamb shank very simply. It's taking regular time about 3 or 4 hours in the oven. We're also going to do a Sunchoke Risotto and finish the lamb shank with a little bit of gremolata, which is a classic garnish for lamb shank since the beginning of who knows when. So we'll go ahead and get started. So here I have a beautiful lamb shank. I get my lamb from Superior Farms in Davis. So you can get a lamb shank at any of your butcher or your an artisan grocery store in your area. So I'm gonna heavily season it. Salt, black pepper, and when I say generous, I mean generous. This is going to form a nice seasoned salt crust on the lamb, which is going to carry through in the dish. Since it is getting braised for 3 to 4 hours, I want to make sure that it's generously seasoned. So I have a saute pan here that's on high heat. I'm going to start with a little oil that won't burn too quickly, so we want to use like a grapeseed oil or a peanut oil or a blended oil, where extra virgin olive oil will smoke. You can see this one's already smoking because of this such high heat. So I add my lamb shank, extreme high heat, trying to form a sear or a nice caramelization on the meat. What this is going to do is going to generate the richness, which will translate into the braising, and it'll also carry the crust through the braising, so when we go to reheat it in the later stages to serve it, it'll have a nice beautiful brown crust on it. So what you want to do here is take a set of tongs and you want to give it about 30 seconds on all sides. You see there that it's already starting to generate some of that color, which is exactly what we're looking for. This is also going to form what we call the fond, as they say in French. It's also going to be that caramelized bottom of the pan that we're then going to use our vegetables and our wine to remove all that stuff that sticks to your pan. As long as it doesn't burn, is great for seasoning anything. So here we're also what I'm gonna serve this with is beef from New Orleans. I love classic Southern recipes. I have fried oysters on my menu. I always have some kind of shellfish bouillabaisse, but these are braised mustard greens. So I take braised mustard greens. They're great because they're very inexpensive. And I saute these. First, I start with a little bit of bacon and slivered garlic. I get all that working. I throw in my mustard greens and sweat the mustard greens. I add a little bit of molasses and a little bit of chicken stock. And you see here, maybe that's a little bit too dark, but it's going to be okay. We want to get it maybe a touch lighter than that, but it's going to be fine because when we braise it with the garlic, the onions, and all the vegetables, it's really going to, a lot of that's going to get washed off. Hand's getting away from me here, so you might want to add a little bit of fresh oil. So obviously this is something you want to do in a well-ventilated kitchen, which is always better to do in a commercial kitchen, but you can do it at home. If you want to do it on a little less heat, it just takes a little more time.
Now if you don't like lamb, is there another cut of meat that you can use instead of lamb in this dish?
You know, something like beef short ribs. Beef short ribs would be something that you would go in this exact same fashion. I mean, braised meat is classically braised meat. It always starts by searing the meat, usually then by removing it and then using that braising pan with vegetables, wine, and stock. Then you reintroduce the meat with some herbs and some salt and pepper, and then you put it in the oven. It's basically a technique for cooking cheaper cuts of meat, tougher cuts of meat. It helps break down the protein chains and the tissue so you get a nice, moist, succulent piece of meat when it's all said and done. Obviously, this wouldn't be a technique that you would do with an expensive cut of meat like a filet mignon steak, or now you would just want to sear it and serve it, right?
Right.
So I'm going to take this out, set it on my cutting board. I still have a lot of good stuff on the pan here, so from this point, I'm going to go with my what we call mirepoix. Mirepoix is the base of every soup and sauce. And generally it starts with onions, celery, and carrot. So you guys are getting a lesson in classic French cooking here. This is about as classic and straightforward, but I think it's great for home cooks to know this stuff, because if you can do this is really, you know, the base, like I said, for braising meats, for making stocks, making sauces. I mean, if you get that, you know, that skill behind you, really, you know, it opens up the whole world of cooking. So, yeah, this is the stuff that kids go to culinary school for. So what we do is we want to sweat our vegetables, actually trying to generate some caramelization on them as well. At this point, depending on what you're doing, sometimes you can add a little bit of tomato paste. Tomato paste is going to help get it a little richer. With short ribs, I would definitely add tomato paste. With my lamb, I choose to not add tomato paste. I think I like the lamb flavor to really come through in the braise. So we're going to get this caramelizing. You would take this for about, you know, in reality, you can take this a good 10 or 15 minutes and just really generate some caramelization on those vegetables. But what we're going to do here is we're just going to hit this with some wine. Whenever you cook with wine, even if you don't want to reduce your wine, it's always great to boil your wine for about 30 seconds to a minute, cooking off the alcohol. And then you can continue, at that point, stop it. But whatever alcohol I use, whether it be Sauterne or Riesling or Gewürztraminer or Chardonnay or Cabernet, I always burn off the alcohol in my wine. You know, a lot of classic cooking, you watch chefs just dump, you know, raw wine right into sauces. And you can do that for stuff that you're going to cook for a prolonged period of time, but I always find it just to be a good practice to burn off the alcohol, I find, and that's what I try to teach in my kitchen. I would have just added my lamb right back in. So here, as my wine's reducing, I'm going to add a little bit of veal stock, or you could buy, this could be a store-bought beef broth.
Smells really good.
So what you see is that it's actually halfway submerged in wine and stock. This is exactly what you want. That is what's called a braise. A braise is a moist cooking method that is, as opposed to roasting something, where you would just put it in the oven and rotate it. This is to braise something, which is to roast it with liquid. And the liquid is going to help soften the meat and give it a more gentler cooking technique. So here we go. So at this point, what I would do is I would cover this in tin foil, okay, which I have here. And they make braising pans that are, you know, if you're to do a whole roast or something like that. And we're gonna go right into the oven. Okay, so now we have the lamb in the oven. So that's gonna take about, I would say, 3.5 to 4 hours at 315, 320. So basically we have our mirepoix, the wine, the stock. You would add, you know, a little bay leaf and herbs. Cover it, put it into the oven. And then basically if you had a crock pot, you could do it in a crock pot. It's the same exact technique. And you just have to figure out the timing and provide the same with your crock pot.
For more information on the restaurants featured in this month's edition of Chef's Corner, go to www.ourrootsareShowing.com.